Okay, well, we're back at the dock at Cabo San Marina in Anacortes after transiting Juan de Fuca Strait out and back. If you watched some of the episodes, you would have seen that. But this last caption is really more about the psychophysical, spiritual, intuitive nature side of decision making for risk sports and single-handing. So 10 days ago or so, I'd packed up the boat, and I had 2 weeks of food, enough to get to San Diego, and I was contemplating that trip. October, a little tentative. Certainly, it's the end of the season. The boat's ready. Boat's been ready for a while. At the end of the day, it took 3 days to get out to Nia Bay to make the final decision on whether to proceed, and there was a good weather window of 7+ days. I had all the fuel and water and food aboard, and at the end of the day, I had the decision to make whether to turn, head west and turn left, go south, or to come back. And I decided to come back. And it's one of those decisions where based more on just how it felt, intuition. There was another boat heading south with a 2-man crew, a 50-foot Beneteau, in that same weather window. A couple of good guys. So intuition, capacity. I've done the trip, 5 years ago in my Contessa 26, so I know what the trials and the hardships can be with the weather, the waves, the boat, mechanical issues, and those sorts of things. So the question of personal capacity, I was wondering if I had still have what it takes, had what it takes to deal with, the trials as they were going to come. Was part of it. Knowing what the trials are, single-handed, did I want to face those challenges, right now? And at the end of the day, I turned around. It's a combination of contemplating, my capacity. Was I on fire? No, I wasn't. There's a phrase in the oil industry for drillers. They talk about feeling rammy, which means aggressive. And was I feeling aggressive? No, I wasn't feeling aggressive. But I had to go out to Nia Bay to literally look at that decision in the face, and decide to turn left or turn right, really, out of that bay. On paper, the weather window was there. There was no issues with the boat. It was the man, the captain. And you could say, yeah, I'm second guessing myself, but part of the power and the force of intuition is not questioning it. Just, if it didn't feel right, even though on paper the weather window was there and the boat was ready to go with no issues for the boat. And it's a big commitment to turn left, especially at this time of year. You get 1 or 2 or 3 days down the coast, and it's a real challenge to try to get back once you turn that corner. So you got wind and waves against you. It's not impossible, but even coming back along Juan de Fuca Strait is its own event in itself. So I think it's one of those things, these are, especially single-handing, it remains a risk sport. I think you have to have a contemplative approach, to these things. Is there, a piece of me that's disappointed that, my psychophysical, emotional headspace wasn't there for the challenge? Yeah, for sure. I'd be lying to you if I said that wasn't the case. I have turned around there before, within 20 miles of that spot 2 other times in my other boat between 2011 and 2014. So it's not the first time. So I think, you got to be mindful of the desire factor. What, how do you, are you filled with the thrill of the challenge and have 120% of the capacity that's required to deal with anything that Mother Nature can throw at you? And if that's the case, boy, that's okay. You feel good, you feel rammy. Okay, let's go. Yeah, let's go. This time wasn't like that. Even on the trip out, I was very contemplative, tentative, and I'll make the decision when I get there. But I didn't want to make it prematurely. I had to go out there. Of course, when I got there the next day, a gale blew, which almost like a reminder of other things that I've been through on this coast. And it can be miserable. It can be suffering. Even for those of us that enjoy that kind of thing. So it's one of the things I'll tell people is, well, I got to get out there and see how it feels. And it's one of those things, if it doesn't feel right, but you force it and you go out and you turn left and then things start to go wrong and you go, oh man, I should have listened to my intuition. Damn. On the other hand, you can try to force it and things are fine. But in this case, it was a very sort of more of an intuitive decision on how it felt. And got out there, had one day with the gale, and then was waiting for the weather window. And quite frankly, the window came, and again, I didn't feel like I had the psychophysical, emotional capacity to deal with that coast in its worst state. So I turned around, and you know what? Live to sail another day, and all of that. Yeah, absolutely. It's a long life. Sailing's meant to be fun and thrilling, but it does remain a risk sport. So I guess the message I'm passing along to folks is, listen to what your inner voice is telling you. And that's what I did on this trip. My inner voice was saying, yeah, you know what, Stevie, you're not quite ready for this. And, it's the end of the season too, right? So that I won't contemplate the trip again till next spring. So the boat will be here for the winter, and that can feel like pressure. But sometimes I think if you succumb to those pressures and you don't listen to your instincts, that's when you can get into trouble. So I'm safely back at Cap Sante Marina. Just had a cup of coffee, and I thought, this is a bit of an ethereal element of single-handing and sailing in general, even with a crew. If you're a captain and you've got other people's lives essentially in your hands based on your decisions, an ounce of caution is worth 10 pounds of consequence. And same thing here, an ounce of thoughtfulness and intuition is worth 10 or 100 pounds of consequence when you make a bad decision, or if you're not feeling up to the challenge. We all have bad days, bad months, bad years, depending what else is going on in your life. Those are factors, that the drain of the life force, if you will. It takes a significant amount of life force to sail offshore, to single hand, especially when you're going out into the big water, and you need to have that life force available for in the event that things turn to the shit. Pardon my French. Anyway, that's what I wanted to leave you with, is the power and the force of intuition and inner voice and decision making for offshore stuff. Yeah, I got one last anecdote to share with you, and it's in relation to intuition and spirituality and the ethereal side of things, and it is actually, it's almost so ridiculous that I got to share it. I suppose I'm as superstitious as the next guy, or maybe not as let's just say that. Maybe I'm average with regards to superstition. Like, I won't start a voyage on a Friday because sailors don't do that. I've owned 2 boats and I haven't changed the name. Now they both, I like the names. Aurelius was my first boat. He was an emperor of Rome. And True North, the name of this boat, I didn't change it. But I always worried that, the superstition, if you change the name of a boat, that can get you into trouble. But so there I am. I'm at Nia Bay and I'm contemplating the decision. And I go for a walk, along the beach and around over toward the breakwater. And I'm in that contemplative, sort of thoughtful headspace. And this is, I'm no word of a lie, this is a true story. Walking along, and I'm thinking, I could just, if I could get a sign, what's the sign for the decision? Is it, should I to turn left or right? What? Maybe Mother Nature can give me a sign. Having that thought passes through my head, and literally I walk another, it must have been 10 steps, not even, and I look over, and there is the carcass of an animal rotting on the side of the trail, and its innards are still there and fresh, but its rib cage is picked clean. So I don't know how old it was. It wasn't that old, but it was old enough for the birds and the bugs to pick the rib cage clean, but everything else was, pretty much still there. And I just thought to myself, seriously, that's what you're giving me? That's what you're giving me? You got to be kidding me, right? Like, get out of here, right? Anyway, true story. I should just give me a sign on what decision I should make. And there's 10 steps later, there's a rotting carcass on the side of the trail. Anyway, that wasn't the final decision, but it was almost black comedy. I don't mind telling you. Anyway, thought I would share that story.